Hello, good afternoon, students. I hope you're keeping yourself well and well hydrated. Today is a very hot day, all right? And it's been 2 weeks since my last lesson. And last week I had no chance to finish up my slides. So today I'm going to have a class, okay? So I'm continuing with chapter 4. I know it's quite slow. Most of you are already quite ahead. So I hope that you can use this as a revision and understand certain parts of the lesson which you could not understand, okay, from school, all right? So I hope that you will be able to get some benefit after joining my class. Okay, it's all right if you're not able to join us live. You will always be able to look at the video by clicking the link again. Okay, so I'm going to share screen now. I hope you can see this. Today I'm going to unravel the mysteries of what lipids are. Okay, let me see who is with me today. Okay, good afternoon, Happy Lee. All right, good evening, good afternoon, yeah. So hope you are happy to see that you're joining us. Okay, so let me share screen. All right, so lipids. Okay, so basically lipid is a general name that refers to organic compound that is insoluble in water. So they do not mix with water, as you already know, yeah, oil and water does not mix. Okay, let's look at the properties of lipids. What are the elements or the molecules that are the atoms that make up lipid? What are lipids made up of? Okay, so and we see what are the types of lipids. Okay, let me check. All right, okay, so this is my first slide. All right, so lipid is an organic compound. Yeah, all the things that we're learning so far, the protein, the carbohydrates, and later we're gonna learn about this as nucleic acid. They're all organic compound because they are made inside the cell. It's made by living cells, so we call it organic. It contains carbon as well. Okay, so they're made up of actually just three. Unlike protein, which had carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and then nitrogen, and sometimes phosphorus and sulfur as well, lipid only has got three elements, which is carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Okay, but however, the ratio of the carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, they are not the same as the ratio for carbohydrate that you've learned earlier. So if you do not remember what carbohydrates ratio was, you can go back and look at the video later, all right, after the composition of carbohydrates. So lipid has a higher ratio of hydrogen atoms compared to oxygen. Oxygen is way too little, too few compared to the number of hydrogen atoms. So you look at this example of lipid molecule. It has C12H24 and only O2. So you can see the hydrogen, the ratio of hydrogen and oxygen. Hydrogen has way more compared to oxygen. All right. And as this is not the only example. You have lipids with C18, H36, and O2. Okay. So you can see the oxygen element, it's very little or very few compared to the hydrogen and the carbon, and the hydrogen and the carbon, yes. All right, now this is an example of lauric acid, which has the molecule of the formula of C12H24 and O2. Now, do not get worried. You don't need to remember the formula. All right, you just need to know that if I give you a picture, you should be able to recognize this is a fatty acid. Okay, because it's got long chains of carbon and hydrogen. All right, now, because of the large or higher number of hydrogens and carbons, so these lipids, most of them, in fact, all of them are hydrophobic. They do not mix with water. They are not attracted to water. Water will not be attracted to this molecule. So they are hydrophobic, okay? So they do not like water. They get separated from water. They form two layers if you add oil to water. So therefore, it is insoluble in water. It's the same meaning. Being hydrophobic, that means they are insoluble in water. They do not dissolve in water. Water cannot go into this layer, okay, of oil or lipid. Okay, so this is the first slide. Okay, and also it's because it's insoluble in water. So usually atoms or molecules or substances that are insoluble in water, they will usually be soluble in the other type of solvent, which is the organic solvent. Okay, water is an inorganic solvent. Okay, so if it's soluble in inorganic solvent like water. It should be soluble in organic solvent. Examples would be alcohol, ether, and chloroform. You know what are chloroforms? Chloroforms are this substance that you use to, pengsankan people. I'm sure you've seen movies where people, put a certain chemical on the handkerchief and then they let someone breathe and the person just become unconscious. Okay, this is what we use to sort of like put the frog to sleep before we start the dissection. So we put the animals to sleep using chloroform. All right. So this is an organic substance, organic solvent. Okay, next slide. All right, types of lipids. So basically, there are 4 types of lipid. Okay, do not worry so much. All you need to concentrate is the first type, which is fats, or we call triglyceride. Okay, examples would be butter and oil and all these that you commonly see. All right, these that you see in your food and so on. Then you will have waxes. Waxes is a type of lipid. Okay, so you will see in candles, all right, the wax removing substance that you use to remove your hair from the skin and all that, wax, all right, candles. And phospholipid, you've seen this phospholipid is the substance that forms your plasma membrane, okay, the layer of this plasma membrane on the cells of the cells. All right, and the last one is steroids. These are mostly used as medication, right? And also part of the hormones. Some of the hormones are steroids. Okay, so we have steroid injection, hormones. Some of the hormones are steroids, and some of them are used as medications, right? Okay, let's concentrate on the first one. Okay, we will look at each one, but more of the questions will be based on the first one, which is the fats or triglycerides. Okay, fats are also known as triglycerides. So you will see these two terms, fats and oils. Okay, actually they refer to the same group of substance. Whether it's fat or whether it's oil depends on the form. Okay, fats are usually solid at room temperature. So you will see fat like butter. Butter you call fat, animal fat, and also this when you buy meat and so on, you will see that white layer of fat that is also animal fat lah, right? So this is under fat. So you will see at solid condition, you call it fat. Usually, it has a it will form solid at room temperature. All right. And oil. Now, what do you call as oil? Oil is also fat. Actually, basically the molecule has the same structure, but oil is because it is liquid at room temperature. So most of them exist in plants. So you have vegetable oils, okay, like peanut oil, palm oil, right? And you have olive oil, sunflower oil. It is liquid at room temperature, which is around 30 degrees Celsius. All right. So basically, they come under the group triglycerides. Now, why you call triglycerides? As the word suggests, tri means 3. Okay. So there are 3 molecules of fatty acid joined together to 1 molecule of glycerol. And the name of the process that joins them together is called condensation. Very much similar to what you've learned about carbohydrate, how to form carbohydrate, the monos from how to form polysaccharide from monosaccharide. The process is called condensation as well. So what happens is 1 molecule of water is removed. Okay, so let's look at how condensation works, how this process of forming fats, or we say triglycerides. Okay, and glycerol, what is glycerol? Glycerol is a molecule that contains 3 alcohol groups. Okay, you will see it when I show the next slide. All right, now don't worry about this. You're not asked to draw the structure. You're not asked to draw how many C and H and O and all that to show your glycerol. Okay, but you need to know that in order to form a triglyceride or fat or oil, you need to have 1 glycerol, and you also need to have 3 molecules of what we call fatty acid. Okay, so here is actually 3. Yeah, you notice the C and the O, they're not joined together. All right, the one at the here. So this is 1 fatty acid on its own, and the R1 here shows the hydrocarbon chain, which is very long. So this has been shortened. The R1 represents, okay, the number of carbon and hydrogen. So it actually looks like this. You see here, this is one example of a fatty acid. And always fatty acids, you see that it has very long hydrocarbon chain. Okay, so on this one side, you have the COOH, which is the carboxylic, okay, acid group. Okay, the group is there, we have the COOH. And the other side, you'll find this very long CH2, which extends up to 20 or 10 or 20 or even 30 carbons. So this is called a long hydrocarbon chain. And this is what makes actually oil or fat insoluble in water. Okay, because the number of oxygen is very few and you have very long hydrocarbon chain which is insoluble in water. Okay, so you have three of it. I'm just highlighting just one, yeah. The one in the yellow or the pink color box is just one. So there are three of it. And in order to form them, you see, after you need to have to remove something. You look at the one I've highlighted, H and OH. Okay, so what happens is this part, which is the hydrogen and the OH here, will be removed. Okay, so this molecule, one molecule of water is removed. Right, one molecule, because H2O, it forms H and OH forms H2O. So it's actually one molecule of water. So for every bond, you find there are three bonds here. So there will be one bond here. Right, let me show you this. Right. Here, there's one bond here, two bonds here, and three bonds here are formed. So for every bond, one molecule of water is removed. So therefore, you need to remove three molecules of water before you can form your triglyceride. And this process is known as condensation, just like what you've learned for protein, formation of this amino protein, right? And also formation of the disaccharide and polysaccharide. Okay, so here, showing you again. So one molecule of glycerol and combined with three fatty acids, all right? You'll find this is the glycerol. Again, don't need to remember the structure. Then you will have three fatty acids here, all right? I'm showing three fatty acids that are identical. There could be different fatty acids joined together, right? There could be, the first one is different, the second one is different, the number of chains, the number of carbon, hydrogen is different, okay? It can be shorter, then medium, and then longer. So it doesn't matter, it doesn't have to all have to be the same fatty acid. There are many different types of fatty acid. So three molecules of water are removed, and what you get is this. This is called the triglyceride. So usually we will represent it in this way with a shape of like an E like that to show your this glycerol and three long fatty acid chain. Okay, so this here you see here is one molecule of fat, not fatty acid. Fatty acid is this individual component. If you form that together, this whole thing is known as a fat molecule. Okay, not fatty acid. Fatty acid is a part of the fat molecule. So this whole thing is a fat molecule. Either it's oil or either it's fat, depends on the form. If it's solid at room temperature, we call it fat. If it is liquid at room temperature, we call it oil. Okay, so it has a basic, the formation is the same. All right, okay, I see there are no questions here, so I'll carry on. All right, now, if we can form triglycerides by joining them together, all right, we can also break down triglyceride. Okay, for example, triglyceride, right, you form it through condensation. The same process also, the same principle you learn, there is a process called hydrolysis, whereby you need to add back water, all right, you need to add back water in order to form the bond. Now, this one has been wrongly labeled, actually. The head actually is facing this way. Okay, this one. So I'll cut this away. All right, actually the head is facing this way. All right, you have to add back the water, and this process is called hydrolysis. Okay, by putting in your H and your OH again, you would have removed the bond. Now you will have formed back the glycerol and three fatty acids. So you can break the triglyceride by adding back water into it. All right, okay, and the process is called hydrolysis. All right, okay, so the second group, now that was the triglycerides. The second group is waxes. Now, waxes, you have the wax for your kasut, all right, for your shoes, your leather shoes, and also for your, cello string. If you play the orchestra, the symphony orchestra, you have these violin strings. You have to wax them, right, so that they're smooth. Okay, car wax, beeswax, beeswax, yeah, candles, okay, and the wax that you use to remove hair, right, on the unsightly hair on the skin, right? So waxes are made up of long chain fatty acid. All the fatty acids are long chain, and also alcohol that is long chain. So it's not the glycerol just now. The glycerol is not long chain. So another form of alcohol which is long chain. All right, okay. So they are waterproof. So because of, like I said, it's it's not soluble in water, so it is insoluble, so it's also waterproof. So you use wax to protect certain surfaces, okay, so water will not go into it, okay, and destroy the whatever thing that you want to protect. Okay, next, phospholipid. You have seen this in chapter 2 when you learn about the function of the plasma membrane, the formation of the plasma membrane. You have this plasma membrane, right? It is a major phospholipid is a major component of plasma membrane. So a molecule of phospholipid is actually formed from one glycerol. There is a glycerol here, all right? And then there's one phosphate group, which is PO4, PO4 3 minus. And also it has only two fatty acid chains. So that's why when you draw your phospholipid, you always draw your two chains, not three, all right? Two chains there. And this forms your plasma membrane. So this is your phospholipid lah, right? Now, so hydrophilic tail, a hydrophilic head, and a hydrophobic tail. Because this here, this fatty acid is not soluble in water, so it's hydrophobic. Whereas the head here, phosphate, is soluble in water. So that's why we call it the hydrophilic head. Okay, water will be attached. Water is easily can attach onto this phosphate group. Okay, right, phospholipid. Last group will be steroids. Okay, steroids. Now, this molecule of steroid, they do not have fatty acid. Okay, but they are complex molecule. At first, I showed the molecular structure of steroid is very complicated, right? And examples, okay, so you need to give some examples of steroids are cholesterol, the one that can, cholesterol that is bad for your heart, right? It increases, it narrows your lumen, and the blood will not be able to go very smoothly in your arteries and so on. Testosterone, this is a male hormone, okay? This is formed inside our body. We have glands that produces hormone. So testosterone is a male hormone, okay, that forms this secondary sexual characteristics, like hair on your face, you have mustache, you have a beard, and then you have hair on the body and so on. That is because the influence of this testosterone. Okay, estrogen, this is the female hormone that controls the formation of all these, the uterus, the monthly period, which is the menstrual cycle. Okay, the formation of all these blood vascular tissue, which is the what do you call, not vascular tissue, the endometrium, the blood vessels on the uterine wall. Then progesterone, this is the hormone that maintains the lining of blood in the uterus. Usually, this is very important when the woman is pregnant, when she's having a baby. So the baby will be protected inside there because there's blood supply. If there's lack of progesterone, the blood supply, the vascular tissues, the what they call the blood vessels will start to break down. So when they break down, there's going to be miscarriage. The baby cannot survive. Okay, so you need progesterone. Pregnant woman needs progesterone in high amounts. Okay, so all these male hormone, female hormone, cholesterol, they come under this steroid. They're insoluble in water, okay, because all these lipids are insoluble in water. Okay, look at all these structures. Now, again, do not get worried. You don't need to draw this. You do not need to even recognize that this is cholesterol. But you can see more or less with all the rings, hexagonal rings. These are our carbon chains, which is in a ring form. So they are steroids, okay? Cholesterol, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. All these are examples of steroid. So where do we use steroid, okay? They use it as medication. So you can also be used as medication. And this dexamethasone, okay, you can get it from the pharmacy and so on. This is the doctor will prescribe to you if you have inflammation, anything bengkak, right? Inflammation, infection, and so on. They will prescribe you with dexamethasone. So this is a medication, right? It's a steroid medication. It contains steroid. Okay, that's it about the 4 types. All right, now types of fatty acids. So just now we have seen fatty acids, right? You find there's a long chain there. So there are actually two types of fatty acid. One is called saturated fatty acid, and the other type is called unsaturated fatty acid. Okay, now how do you classify them as saturated or unsaturated? Okay, if you look at the formula or you look at the structure, you will know. Okay, look at this, I'm showing you. Okay, saturated fatty acid will have this, the carboxylic group here, and you have the long hydrocarbon chain here. You can see that all of these hydrocarbon chains, the bond is all single bond. Okay, now carbon can take only maximum 4. Okay, if you put a hydrogen here, you put a hydrogen here, you put hydrogen, it's already saturated. You cannot put in another 5th bond. So carbon, if you have another at the side here, carbon, carbon, then the rest, if you have another 3 more, it's already saturated. You can't add in any more molecules into this fatty acid. But for unsaturated, you will see at least one of the bonds here will be a double bond. Double bond. Okay, so it is actually bond is like covalent, the sharing of electrons. You will learn that in chemistry, right? Or maybe you have learned it in chemistry. So carbon, for this unsaturated, if it has double bond, one carbon here already has 2, so it can only bind with another 2 more. So hydrogen here, and this one hydrogen here, another hydrogen here. You see, it's already got 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you can't put in another one. If you put another one at the bottom here, it's going to be 5. All right, okay, so this one is already considered double bond. You cannot put in any more. It's called unsaturated because this bond can be broken later. This particular bond here, okay, it can be broken to add in more atoms here. So you will look at the shape here. So it's unsaturated versus saturated. The only difference here is the number of bonds between your carbon chain. Okay, sorry, here. I should be labeling here. Wrong. This is not this one. Yeah, not here, but here. I'm referring to the carbon and carbon bond. Between carbon and carbon. Between carbon and carbon. All right, okay. So now, fatty acids got 2 types. So what about fats? Okay, so why do we call certain fats saturated fat? And why do we call some of them unsaturated fat? So it depends on what type of fatty acid there are inside the molecule, inside the fat. If for saturated fat, if all the fatty acids are saturated fatty acid, okay, like this one, single bond between the carbon, 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 all of them have single bonds, all the fatty acid molecules have single bond, then this is a saturated fat. So we see the fatty acid, okay? And for unsaturated fat, if you see at least one of the fatty acid has a double bond, then you call it an unsaturated fat. So you can see mostly saturated fat are the ones that are, originate from animal source, like milk, butter, okay, the cream from the animal, from the milk and all that, and also animal fat. For unsaturated fat, the source or the origin is mostly from vegetables or plants. You have olive oil, you have sunflower oil. Most of them contain unsaturated fat. Okay, let's look at the similarities first. Similarities, yeah, all the saturated fats contains carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Of course, carbon and hydrogen is way more compared to the oxygen atom, right? And they are both made of glycerol and fatty acids. Okay, so the fats, they all made up of 1 molecule of glycerol and 3 molecules of fatty acid. So it depends on the fatty acid, right? If the fatty acid is saturated fatty acid, all of them saturated fatty acid, therefore it will be a saturated fat. If the one of the fatty acid, at least one of it is unsaturated fatty acid, therefore is known as an unsaturated fat. All right, okay, if you're not clear, you can message me later. All right, I'll explain to you. Now, both are non-polar. Okay, non-polar, that means there's no charge at any of the molecule, right? At any part of the molecule is not charged. Therefore, they are insoluble in water. Water will not be able to attract it. Water will not be able to pull it away and sort of dissolve it into the water. All right, all of these fats are insoluble. Okay, let's look at the differences then. Saturated fat and unsaturated fat. So you can see here, the diagram here shows the fatty acid. Now, for saturated fat, all the fatty acids have single bond. Okay, and for unsaturated fat, at least one of the fatty acid will have one double bond. Okay, let's look at this. Saturated fats, they all have single bonds between the carbon atom. So you only draw a single line between your carbon and carbon, one single dash in to show single bond. Okay, for unsaturated fat, you will have at least one, okay, bond between the carbon atom that you have to put double line. It's a double bond, at least one. The other two fatty acid may be saturated, never mind. But at least you have one unsaturated fatty acid. This is considered an unsaturated fat, at least one. Okay. Then solid saturated fats are solid at room temperature, just the animal fat, okay, or butter. For unsaturated fat, they are liquid at room temperature. So usually you see all the examples of oils, vegetable oils, and all that. They contain a lot of unsaturated fat. Okay. Some more differences. Okay. Again, the molecule, I show you the fatty acid, right? So they are unable to accept or form chemical bonds with additional atoms. So for saturated fat, because the carbons are all bound up already, yeah, you see there are maximum 4 already. Here got carbon, carbon, and hydrogen, and so on continuously. So there's no way to add in any more carbon inside or any more atom. There's no way to add anything. So you cannot break it. You cannot break it down further. All right, you cannot break down your saturated fat into smaller molecules that you can mobilize it. All right, you can make use of it. So it's unable to accept. But for unsaturated fat, because there is a double bond here, at least here, so this double bond can be hydrolyzed. Okay, it can be broken. Later on, if I add in hydrogen, the hydrogen will go in and this one will disappear, right? This one will disappear. It's no longer double bond. So it will become single, and then this one add on this two hydrogen, new hydrogen here, right? And this is the existing hydrogen up here. Sorry, not enough space to write, okay? So this is carbon. So you can break this double bond, and by adding, more atoms inside, and now it becomes saturated. From an unsaturated fat, you break the double bond, it becomes a saturated fat. Okay, so it's able to accept, or it can form chemical bonds with additional atoms. So this is additional atom, your hydrogen here that you bring inside. Okay, this is additional. We add in, the bond will be broken, and now it becomes saturated fat. Okay, and all bonds are saturated. Okay, for the saturated fat, all bonds saturated, that means you cannot put in anything else, right? It means full. Saturated means full. For unsaturated fat, because you still can break the double bond, so we say the bond is not full. So we say it's unsaturated. All right, okay, clear? Right, some more, a little bit more. Now, saturated fats have known to be not good for the body, not good for your health, because it is known to raise the level of LDL. LDL is the bad cholesterol. It's a bad kind of cholesterol in your body, which is called low density lipoprotein. So if your LDL level is high, that means you have a tendency to have cardiovascular diseases. Okay, it might clog your arteries, so your blood will be you have high blood pressure, and that will carry the risk of stroke. If it happens in the brain, you get a stroke. Your blood vessels will burst, it will rupture because of the pressure. Okay, unsaturated fat, on the other hand, it's known to reduce the level of LDL. That means it can lower down the level of bad cholesterol in the body. That means it is better for your health. It's good fat. Okay, we can also say it increases the level of the good cholesterol, which is called HDL. HDL is the good cholesterol called high density lipoprotein. So HDL is the good cholesterol, LDL is the bad cholesterol. All right, okay, and so therefore, you see, saturated fat is not good for your body. It increases the risk of heart diseases and stroke. For unsaturated fat, it reduces the risk of heart disease and stroke. So if you have a choice, always go for unsaturated fats, which is mostly in vegetable oil. Mostly, I say mostly, yeah. So because there is an exception. Butter, all right, animal fat, all these from sources of animal. Now, except for, coconut milk, or coconut milk is actually saturated, So don't take so much coconut milk or santan, right? Santan, which is, even though it's vegetable, it's plant-based, but it's saturated fat. Okay, full cream milk, because this one you have not separated the fat from the milk. This is a high content of fat in the milk. Okay, so this from, of course, animal lah. And then for unsaturated fat, go for vegetable oils: corn oil, olive oil, sunflower oil, soybean oil, soya bean, right, oil. And with the exception, this is animal, fish oil. Fish, even though it's animal, but this is good oil. So you get the omega fatty acid, omega-3, omega-6, and all that. They are good for the heart, okay, because it reduces the level of LDL. It does not clog your arteries. Okay, all right. So and lastly, let's look at the importance of lipid in cells. Why do we need lipids in our body? Okay, why do we need lipids in the cell? What is the function? What is the role of lipid? Okay, so first, we have lipid in our body. It envelops, it covers the organs. Okay, so it covers your, your this heart. It also covers the kidneys. So it protects the internal organs. Okay, it protects the internal organs. So it's like cushion. It cushions the impact. Then it also acts as a heat insulator. So people with more fat, right, they were less likely to feel the cold. Okay, if both people are exposed, one fat person, one very thin person, the person who's got less fat would be more susceptible to feeling the cold, okay, rather than a person who's got a lot of heat. Because heat, lipid is a very good insulator. It does not allow the heat to be dispersed, okay, or released. Okay, and then glycolipid, right? The glycolipid is this addition on the lipid that is stuck onto this plasma membrane. This helps in cell identification. It helps the cell to recognize, okay? And it also ensures the stability of plasma membrane. This is what we have learned in chapter 2, where you have this glycogen, which is a carbohydrate, stuck onto the head of this phospholipid molecule. That is glycolipid. The whole thing is called glycolipid because the lipid is stuck there, right? So it helps in cell identification. It's like antigen, right? Then this is very important. You have a lot of fat in your body. That means you have a storage of energy. When you do not eat for many, many hours or many days, you don't die, right, immediately, because your body will has a way of using the fat that you have stored. It will oxidize the fat to produce energy, okay, because it can't get your glucose. You're not eating yet, but you don't worry, because your lipid will be converted into glucose. Then your cells will be able to oxidize the glucose to produce energy. Okay, this is what happens when you don't eat. When people dieting, they want to use up their fat. They do not eat so much. They don't eat for not very full meals. They are forcing the body to oxidize the fat so that they will lose fat. Okay, and they look slimmer. That's what they do when they diet. All right. And lastly, it forms structural parts of your body. Lipids forms waxes. So you see, what are the parts of the body will have these lipids? Sebum. Sebum is oil. Your skin produces a kind of oil, okay, from the glands called sebaceous glands, which is inside the skin. So it has protection, all right? It forms a protective layer. It moisturizes your skin, all right? So you do not dry up easily. That kind of oil is important. That oil is called sebum. Then you have cuticle, all right, for the plants. Surface of the leaf has a layer of wax called cuticle. And you also have our fingernails, sorry, not cuticle. Then you also have wax, right, on certain parts of this skin, right? I mean, sorry, the leaves, right? And then cholesterol. Cholesterol, it's used to form steroid hormones. Okay, cuticle is also actually on your fingertips, on your fingers, on your fingernails, right? Fingernails. All right. So all these are examples of waxes. All right, sebum, cuticle, and cholesterol. So these are the things that you need to know, lah. This is all you need to know about lipid. All right. Okay. So I hope that you have. Now this is all of my lesson for today. I put it in small little pockets, small little bite-sized pieces, so it's not too boring for you, and you can go back to it and watch it anytime if you need a refresher. All right, okay, so thank you very much for watching. So I do not know who else is here, so happily thank you, and hope you can share the link to your friends if you feel that your friends do not understand some part of the lesson. Okay, all right. Thank you very much. I will hope to see you another time. Oh, sorry, yeah. Hope to see you another time. And bye bye from me. And I might have a class if I finish the slide for next week. Okay, thank you. Bye bye. Thank you. Happily. See you.